this session is basically biomedical applications of 3D printing. So far we have discussed several applications, maybe right from the aerospace, automobile, and some consumer products, and any other applications, and why specific biomedical in 3D printing. So you may experienced it, why this technology is so popular in medical. So the reason is simple, where we need to have a customized solution for the medical application. Why? Because each patient is a unique in his or in her anatomy, and wherever, so we have talked about the 10 mantra of 3D printing. So one among is the complexity is free of cost. So here all these anatomy, the human anatomy is very complex in nature. So here the complexity is free of cost. And of course, customization, personalization is another mantra of 3D printing. So here is a quite apt situation where we need to customize, or where we need to personalize the application for each and every patient. So that is quite apt technology for the medical applications. And now coming to the presentation outline. So I'm going to give a little bit of introduction to the medical 3D printing. So we have already covered one medical modeling software, and then we have seen how to convert the DICOM images into a STL file, and further it is getting printed. And let me give a brief introduction to the medical 3D printing here. And this presentation is not about the literature is available in the I'm not going to present the literature here. These are the some of the cases which we personally engaged with the doctors, in the sense we have been working at least 2 to 3 specialized doctors. So the majority the oral and maxillofacial surgeons, and even we have worked a bit with the craniofacial surgeons and orthopedicians, and of course cardiac surgeons also. We have worked these people, but whatever today I'm going to present here is one cranioplasty case I'm going to present. So that is basically a modeling and analysis of a cranium implant. And second case is a dental case, that is how this 3D printing helpful for placing an implant. And third case is a mandibular distraction osteogenesis. So in the medical practices also nowadays, you have a lot of developments are happening. So medical people also, they are coming out with a innovative surgical methods. They are not following a traditional methods, and which 3D printing is also catalyzing such kind of opportunity for the doctors. So I am going to discuss one of the third case, that is a mandibular distraction osteogenesis. That is one of the recent methodology to reconstruct the bones, or how to set right the kind of problems that we will discuss. Each case will be having its different reasons why by birth, maybe due to cancer, or maybe due to accidents. So you may have a several maybe a trauma case, or maybe by birth you have a several reasons. I'm going to talk about say third case is about mandibular distraction osteogenesis case, and fourth case is ameloblastic fibroma of mandible, or cancerous bone reconstruction. So these names are derived from the Greek or Latin. That's what we will face some difficulty to follow these terminology. Why? Because these are derived from Greek or either or Latin. So then I will try to uh, put it in a more easy way. Let me try. So, and we have the fifth case is a temporal mandibular joint ankylosis. That is the fifth case. I'm just describing the case backgrounds or the various cases, the reasons behind these cases or the causes. And then the sixth case is a basal osseointegrated implant. So that is an accident case, the sixth case. So then what are these terms like a cranioplasty or these terms? Say for example, so if you take skull, so basically, are you able to see this model? So you take this skull, so the skull part we can divide it into three parts. Say for example, say the portion which is covering the brain, so this skull portion, maybe you may call as a cranium bone. This is called as a cranium bone. And I may have a lower jaw here, say. So I may have a lower jaw. This is the lower jaw called mandible. And I may have the upper jaw called as maxilla. So you try to acquaint these terms. So during the presentation, I may be using this. So the upper jaw will be called as maxilla, and lower jaw is called as mandible. And what is a TMJ? TMJ is nothing but, so you have the skull and you have this mandible. So the mandible, lower mandible, and this skull with the maxilla. Yes.
Slides not changing.
I'm not changing the slides. I'm talking about. Are you able to see my image in the camera?
No, presentation outline I'm able to see.
No. You go to video mode. You see my video. You can. I am explaining with some models.
Okay.
You put camera. My camera view. You can put it. So you can have this maxilla, the skull with the upper jaw, and you have a lower jaw. So for a healthy patient, so you must have a free movement of a healthy patient must have the free joint, this condyle portion, and this the upper jaw at the maxilla. So it must have a free movement for a healthy patient, for a healthy person. But we have some cases like where this we cannot. Why? Because it got fused. So the TMJ got fused. I'm going to discuss in detail during the course the case when it will come. So the basic idea here is, so how to set right your TMJ joint, one case, and we have other one is reconstruction of these bones. So, and then finally we are going to see the future of this 3D printing technology. So then you can switch on to the presentation mode. I'm not going to show now onwards any models. So kindly change your view to the slides. Okay, 100% you can put it as a slide. Okay. So now we'll see these cases one by one. So let us start first. Before starting the cases, then we'll see why this 3D printing and the statistics of this 3D printing in medicine. Say if you see the applications, so these applications the first application or the maximum share of these 3D printing applications as for the Holler statistics. So it is going to be the consumer products or the consumer electronics, 21.8%. And of course, you have a motor vehicle. This is automobile and automotive together. So the 18.6 is the second highest application is motor vehicle, that is automobile and automotive together. And of course, if you see the third highest application among these 3D printing applications is the medical and dental. So means it is the third highest application as far as the medical, the application share of the 3D printing in the medical domain is phenomenal. So, and then within the medical domain, so if you see the statistics, again, this is the expectation versus time graph or the hype graph or a Gartner curve. So where we can see the orthopedicians or the early users of this 3D printing technology for either in terms of knee replacement or a hip replacement or any kind of bones. So they used to use this technology. So those orthopedicians are the early users of this technology. That's what it is, almost like touching to the productivity. Very soon we can see this may go here, means it may touch to the productivity. And if you see the dental cases, the dental applications, it is like peak of the expectations, or it is the most hyped application in medicine is the dental. And of course, apart from the dental and orthopedic, so there are some new applications in medicine. They are coming like a bioprinting, so that is printing of the organs, so that is coming slowly now, that is at the initial stage. And you have even a medical research, that is also initial stage. It will take some time to move these applications to reach to this plateau of productivity. So it may take maybe 15 to 20 years, maybe we can expect. So these are maybe during that time you can expect some new applications also come in. So this is about the medical domain and the 3D printing and the statistics or the history, and of course, apart from these guys, even a cardiac surgeon also can be using this technology, or a craniofacial surgeon, or a dermatologist, or an ENT. So let's say wherever you have a scope to have a digital data, so then you can use this technology, as you know. So then a general procedure of a medical, in a recap, so we have to start with the CT or a MRI scan data. And that CT and MRI scan data, normally it is a black and white two-dimensional images. And of course, here in the scanners also you have a good developments, like you have a CBCT, so the cone beam CT. So cone beam CT can give a volumetric data, true, but what my 3D printer is looking for, so then it may not give you that format, or I want to segregate my tissues or my region of interest, so that may not be directly taking the CBCT data into the 3D printing. So definitely, as of now, we need to have some software to perform that job. So that's what you have a medical modeling softwares in the which we have discussed during the third session. So you have a plenty of softwares to do this job. And of course, from that software data, you take it as STL file and use any 3D printing interfacing software to do slicing. You know how to do that. In fact, you have a hands-on training on also the Cura software, how to do generate the G codes, right? And then you, once you generate the G codes after slicing, you send it to the machine, and then you get your biomodel. So then take this biomodel, use it for any application in the sense what? So you start with a basic diagnosing purpose application. That is the initial level of application where the radiologist want to have see, instead of seeing in a computer, he wants to have a physical feel of the patient, the problem or the disease or malfunctioning wherever the region of interest. So he wants to print it. So then just for the visualization or just for the diagnostic purpose. So that may be the first application. And further, that models can be used for planning the surgery. We'll discuss that one in the during the cases which we discuss, or even it can be used for designing an implant, that is a customized implant, or it can be a prosthetics, or it can be a some medical device supporting or non-supporting device or template or guide, or even it can be any supporting device, or directly or indirectly, or planning the surgery or rehearsal the surgery or implant placement, or you have a several applications. So then you can perform on these models once you have a biomodel with you. Say why we need to have a physical model or a biomodel in particular. Why can't you manage with the soft data or a visual data? So the visualization problems may be there in your problems, maybe in the graphic side or maybe in the software side. So you may have a limited kind of visibility or some problems, but definitely you don't have a physical touch and feel the area of interest. So what a physical model is giving you an opportunity to touch and feel, and not only touch and feel. Say for example, you take this biomodel. So this biomodel, so where minimum 2 to 3 different specialized surgeons must be involved in this surgery. Why? Because so you are going to reconstruct this bone here, maybe due to accident or some other reason, so or some bone cancer or some reasons. So we need to remove this portion, and then we need to augment, or we need to fix an implant, or by giving some artificial part here. And then how many doctors of specialization should be involved in this? And of course, being a maxillofacial region, and of course your oral maxillofacial surgeon must be there, and you are dealing with the orbital portion, and where your no the eyeball will be sitting here. So means you have to invite the ophthalmologist into the surgery, otherwise so he may lose the vision. Why? Because if you are not placing properly, and if you are misplacing the eyeball, and there will be a chance of losing the vision. So see how critical surgery is it. So it may involve several people, and this is the most critical part is the eye. So then definitely it is not a simple surgery, so it is a complex surgery. So then definitely you have a kind of a physical model like this. So let it be this kind of thing, or it can be a hip, or either it can be a pelvis joint or hip joint, or it can be anything. Maybe it may be a spine, or it may be a skull, or maybe a mandible, whatnot. Say your physical model is physical model, and we can communicate among the surgeons as we discussed, or even you can educate the patient. So this is what, there is a malfunctioning, or there is a problem here which we are going to operate, and this something like you can educate the patient, and you can have a better communication among different surgeons here, where they have to involve here. So that is an opportunity here to communicate and educate the patient, and to assist the surgeons with the diagnostic and surgical planning. Say before going to the actual surgery in the operation theater, so he can rehearsal the surgery, and he can save a lot of operating time, or even come out with a kind of a innovative surgical procedure never before. And even he can plan all the devices or the instruments that he is going to use for the surgery. So that is giving an opportunity to have such kind of planning the surgery, or even you can rehearsal the surgery on this. So why? Because it has derived from the patient specific data. So as well, if he rehearsal and if he simulate the surgery, so his confidence levels are high. So those are that is the intangible benefit in terms of the confidence level of a surgeon. So like this, you can talk about these advantages of these physical models or the biomodels, which are derived from the patient specific data. And of course you can create a customized prosthetic, and of course you can design and placement an implant, so that is which is custom made for that patient. So you're not working with the standard sized implants here normally they used to do, but you have an opportunity here in terms of 3D printing. So you can customize your implants, or you can customize your prosthetics, and you can simulate the surgery, you can rehearse the surgery, you can plan the surgery, you can have a prerequisites of the surgery, and then you can perform the surgery with 100% confidence levels, and we can reduce the operating time. So like that, we can say several advantages of these procedures once you incorporate in the medical applications. So then how to make the physical models? And of course, you have the early practice was people used to, now the 3D printing are ready to manufacturing now. Early 90s or late 80s this technology was started, say 30 year or hardly 32 33 years old technology. But whereas people used to use NC milling, but problem with the NC milling is, as we know, that if the complexity grows, your NC or CNC having a lot of investment, or a lot of tooling investment, or a lot of fixer investment. So you have to do several things. But of course, it's a complex geometry. Why? Because it's a God's design. So you have a lot of undercuts, and you have a lot of voids in any anatomy, and you have an internal geometries like neurovascular canals. So altogether, it's making very tough for a conventional manufacturing or fabrication methods to make these biomodels, which are derived from the CT or MRI data. And of course, there are some other issues also. The materials may be too brittle conventionally, or maybe too soft, or some materials may not be sterilized. But here you can avoid all those limitations, and you can get the advantages whatever mantra we have discussed in the 3D printing mantras. So you can apply all those mantras here in the medical applications. So of course, let me give some application domain of this medical area. So where you have an orthopedician can replace the total hip, or he can replace the knees. The total knee can be replaced now, total hip can be replaced, the pelvis joints, so, and then bones, so whatnot. So the orthopedician can use this technology for making either bones or the joints wherever you need fingers or whatever it is. So, and of course, a dental doctor is of course another area where we can make the crowns, or you can even, maxillofacial surgeon can have a reconstruction surgery. So, and maxillofacial deformities and craniofacial surgeries, and then you have again orthopedician, and of course you have some kind of conjoint twins. A complex surgery can be resolved very easily, but still in India we are unable to separate these conjoint twins. So from the Telangana, which one case, still they took the 10th class exams, means 15 years. No, we could not. So in India, we are very sorry to know, we are unable to explore this technology. So but somewhere else people are using this technology, for giving better life to the people in the society, or saving the lives. So of course, the cranioplasty is another area, and maxillofacial is another area just now I discussed. And biomedical devices can be made, and even you can make a biosensors also. Nowadays some of the printers can make electronics parts, that the sensors, embedded sensors, so that can be a biosensor which you can print it from this technology. And biomems devices also, nowadays you can even have microfluidic devices, micro mems devices can be printed. You have a nano particle jetting or other developments in the 3D printing technology nowadays. You can have a microfluidic devices and bioprocessing, bioseparation. And of course, you have an augmented tangible molecular models for research and education purpose, maybe for anatomy classes, or maybe for the training the before taking their profession. So you can, for the house surgeons, can be given these kind of models for practicing the surgery. So you have several applications too. So let me discuss the cases one by one, so which we have performed with the doctors. So the first one is a cranioplasty case, and which modeling and analysis of a cranium implant we have done with one of the craniofacial surgeon. So as usual, we have to start with this process with a software like mimics which we have used for this, but you have now open source softwares also, almost same capabilities of the software. So you can even import your DICOM images. So as we have already shown some demo also on this mimic software. So just you can segregate, or just you can threshold by specifying the bone density, or by specifying the threshold value of each and every. Say I'm interested in only bone here, so I may not be interested the brain inside, or I may not be interested about other tissues. So I may be interested only the bone, the bone part. So you know that there is a range for this. Bone is again not the same density, so you have a varying density of the bone, and then we need to supply that range of the bone Hansfield number, and then we can capture the bone alone from the entire skull portion. I may be using for my cranioplasty implant, which I'm going to. And the challenge here is the thickness of the skull is not uniform. So then that is the thing which we need to mimic the patient skull geometry dimensions, and we must get a kind of a close tight tolerances. Why we need to have a close tight tolerances here? The implant should be correctly fit. Why? Because you have a brain, and of course you have a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid, so CSF. The CSF is the fluid which will pump from the brain to the spine. So there is a liquid like something like a water. So then of course we need to have a tight fitting of your implant to the skull. So that is the challenge. Why? Because this is a varying thickness. It's not a constant thickness where the skull is. See, that's what we can use the tools, the measurement tools, or any other tools, and we can assume that it's a symmetric, and we can mirror the image. We can take the mirroring plane, so you can mirror the other part from this side, and assuming that it's a symmetric, and we can model, and then once you model, you can print them also, and then you can check in a real time the fitment of this implant to the skull. So this we can do it. And how to the challenge here is, if the defect is symmetric, so then you have the mirroring option. But if your defect is not symmetric, that is asymmetric, so we don't know if it is an accident, so then we cannot expect the patient will broke his skull bone into a symmetric fashion. So that's not happen, right? So then what we have done, majority of the softwares will do only the symmetric modeling, so where asymmetric may not be accommodated. Then we have developed our own algorithm, and we have used Rhino software, and then we have integrated our own NURBS based algorithm to come out with a beyond the midline if there are some asymmetric damages or asymmetric defects. So then we have developed an algorithm. And then the challenge here is, say while fixing this implant to the skull, so how many fixation points we need to, and for that there are some regulations from the medical domain, and then minimum this number we have to use, and then those numbers should not be more and should not be less, so it must be an optimized number. Then how to get the optimized number? Of course your fluid, as I mentioned, your cerebrospinal fluid, so that pressure should be uniform. It should not be moving this side or that side. So it should be at the center. So means your pressure of the fluid should be uniform across your implant. So that's what we have done the simulations on it. So how to fix and where to fix these fixation points. And of course we have observed the deformation. We have only the limited material options. Why? Because it should be FDA approved. So then we have tested in the metal side as the titanium, and the polymer side as a PMMA and PEEK, and then we tested for the deformation and the stresses and things like that. Then we have concluded. So then we want to go with say, depending on situation, then you can choose. So say for example in this case, and again, so we have developed one more meshless approach. As you know that basically FEM analysis or the STL it's a mesh based data. But you have several disadvantages of mesh based approach, but we have come out with a meshless approach. So for doing these kind of modeling and analysis of this implant, and if you closely observe this skull is not a solid what you call the thickness. So if you closely observe, so you have this the inner portion which will no protect your brain. So this is having a different thickness, and the outer bone it will be having a different thickness, and in between you have a spongy kind of a bone. So this spongy bone, so you may have a different porosity, and again it depends on the age and sex and other factors. So then we need to mimic exactly this skull. So the only 3D printing can do this mimicking of your a kind of a bone structure, a lattice structure, basically, right? This you have a spongy or you have a porous inside. So then basically you have a 3 layers here. So one is inner and one is outer cortical layer, and you have inside a spongy bone, and which it should be mimicking the porosity of the patient. So that's what which we need to model and simulate, and of course, and we need to fabricate it, and then we have done is modeling simulation but not implanted it. So but implantation may be a different story, but anyway, in this case we are not implanted, we have done only modeling and simulation. And even while showing our demo of the lab, the same part which we printed in titanium also, it can be implanted, but taking several approvals and clearances that we need to have some kind of challenge, or we need to take some clearances. And then we'll talk about the next case. The second case is the dental case. So this is how this technology is helpful for placing the implant. So means basically it is a pre-planning of the surgery using these biomodels. So how it can be done. So, and again the challenge here for the dentist or an implantologist, which he places the implants. So there is a inferior alveolar nerve. So you have this root canal or this inferior alveolar nerve. So this will be passing. So you have the condyle portion here. From the condyle, so it will pass like this, and from this and through the mental foramen, and again it will pass to the other side of the condyle portion of your mandible. So the challenge here is, so and again you have different molars and different positions of your teeth. Say how to fix this implant, so means how to drill a hole onto the bone without damaging his nerve. So that is the challenge, and what could be the orientation and what could be the size. So these are the things which we need to carefully do. Why I am talking this is, if you take the conventional procedure, you forget about 3D printing. So what conventionally they do, they will take an impression from the mouth. So taking an impression from the mouth, you will get only the outer surface of the mandible or your lower jaw, but you cannot get the information about the nerve that is passing inside your jaw. So the only medical imaging and 3D printing combinedly giving an opportunity, so to make, of course, use a medical image modeling software to start with the DICOM image and .mcs, and then thresholding it, and you have some kind of segmentation tools and density masks, and finally arrive with STL file, and only with the mandible portion you can region grow and you can segment it out. So this is what where the mandible and where we need to fix an implant here. So then once you do this data processing and further you can give it to this, we have made it an FDM dimension machine, and this is we have done, I think it may be around 10 years back, not now. So it's a 10-year-old case study, which it was the first case study which I have performed along with one of the dental doctors at Narayana Dental College, Nellore. So we printed this through this FDM dimension machine, and this is the biomodel, and where we can see, which we can very clearly see the mental foramen here. And of course, being FDM material which you cannot see clearly, if it would have been a transparent material and it would have been better, but where we can know this nerve position where this mental from this condyle portion, and where we can see that impression, not exactly the nerve here. If it would have been better if it would have been a transparent material like SLA, or at the time SLA was not that much popular and it was very costly affair. But now SLA or DLP technology is very cheap now compared to FDM also. Now are on par with FDM, but we used FDM technology during that time. I'm talking about this 10-year-old case study. So then you can you take this biomodel, and sit with the dentist, and where we can use their regular dental toolkit to use pilot drilling and then fine drilling, and finally, so let them do that kind of a rehearsal on these model, not on the patient, trying on the patient, or using some standard implants and trying to fit it. So normally these you have a very few companies, they sell this titanium or a cobalt chrome based kind of implants. Those are in a standard size, but that may not exactly fit to the patient. Why? Because each patient will have his own molar size, and each teeth may have a different geometry. But here you have an opportunity through 3D printing, so you can make this as for the patient specific and do rehearsal, and you come out with what could be the size of an implant, and what could be the orientation, and what could be the depth. So you can conclude all that based on the rehearsal which you have done on this. So then you can directly go to the operation theater based on that rehearsal which you have done. So, and then you can use only those drill bits which you tried during this rehearsal. So then quickly you can complete your surgery by fixing. And of course this initially we have to do a drilling, and then you need to fix that implant, and on top of that you have an abutment, and finally your dental crown will be seated here. So immediately we can check whether that implant has placed properly or not, so through x-ray, hand x-ray, so you can check. So this was the first experience, our first experience with the dentist, where this technology 10-year-old which we try to do it. And then we slowly moved on to the oral and maxillofacial cases, and this is the one case I am presenting a very few cases here, not all the cases. So here which the briefing of this case. So this girl, 8-year-old girl, so she could not open her mouth properly. Even you can see there is an deformity by birth, and because of that she could not open her mouth properly. As you know that typically it may be 4 to 5 centimeters, as a healthy person can open the mouth, but because of that defect she could not open her mouth fully. So, and that was the problem, and which we can see we need to reconstruct, we need to make it symmetry, we need to make it symmetric, this bone. So for that I have already given a introduction to that distraction osteogenesis. So they may use a kind of a screw kind of a device, and they will fix it, and the patient can rotate that screw. So then that calculation you can do on this biomodel which you have generated, or which you have collected from the patient. So then you can do such kind of calculations, vector calculations. So then you can come out with some conclusion. So how much bone should be stretched, right? So then how to stretch it? So then you have that device called distraction osteogenesis. You have, and a distractor can help you to guide that bone growth through that distractor. So the calculations will be done, and this which we can see, this is an abnormality. And as usual, start with a CT data or a DICOM image through medical modeling software, and which we can see this is a defect which we can see. So, and which we can see this part is, this side is okay, but it should be, make it like this, means it should be symmetric, and which we should twist this bone and in such a way that we can get a symmetric with respect to the other survived part. So this is what I am talking about, the distractor. So they will place this distractor. So you have different kinds of distractors, maybe external or maybe internal, and you have a screw kind of a device here, which a patient can daily, she can rotate. So how much she has to rotate? Maybe one revolution. So it may advance to maybe 0.5 mm, something like that. So that again depends on the patient, which you can get the calculations of those things. So by taking the the patient bone, which has derived from the scan data. So of course, this we have printed using a Mojo machine. This we have done maybe 4-5 years back. So this is in a Mojo we have printed this part, Stratasys Mojo machine, and this is which we can see it should be twisted in this way, right? So which we can see that if it is not symmetric, so which we need to do a kind of calculation here. So and it would have been a semicircle if it had been a normal patient, but because of her deformity, so which we can see, so this ramus portion, this called as the ramus, this one side ramus is very lengthy, but one side ramus not grown properly. So what we need to do is we need to stretch, or we need to stretch this ramus bone, and in such a way that we need to twist it. So you take at the center as the reference, and then we need to do some kind of a mechanics calculation, vector calculation, so how much it should be twisted, so in such a way that your ramus height, so this is the ramus height which you are looking at, and this is, can you see the difference, and which we need to make it, set it equal ramus height, and then it should retain the symmetricity. So that is the task. So then we need to twist, we need to stretch, then this is what where the transformation happens from the initial condition, and during the sittings, different sittings, and then this is the one, and then finally which we can see this is the transformation. But still you can find some kind of deviation. Absolutely, yes, you are correct. Why? Because so the bone growth will be there up to teenage, but we should not correct 100% now. So it's now it is over corrected. So then once she turns her, no, this one, the teenage, so then it should be done a final setting of the surgery. So this is what at least some kind of symmetricity as attained. So this is the case. Again, we have used only the planning of the surgery of these 3D printed models. And then next task, we have attempted to place an implant for taking one cancerous bone patient, so that where he has some kind of ameloblastic fibroma of mandible. So then this case background, so because of tobacco consumption, so there is a cancer has happened, so which we need to remove that cancerous mandibular joint, and it should be augmented. So that is the thing which we attempted to fix an implant, but we could not. But at least we have succeeded using this to used for planning the surgery, or rather than the conventional, better than the conventional procedure which we could achieve during this case. And what we have done, which we can see, there is a portion which it is a cancerous bone here, and again using a symmetrical solution in the software, use the symmetric option. So then we can assume that it's the same symmetry, and then you can cut how much portion we are going to remove from one side, and then you take augment from the other side. So from the survived portion to the diseased portion, or the diseased size, or the cancerous side to the survived side. So just we can do all these things in the software, and even further you can print the biomodel, and you can cut how much portion where we need to cut, and how much we need to cut it. So and then even we designed some implant to fix there, and we have done in a different softwares to model it. Thematic software is used to model the implant for this. And then we even printed a metal titanium 6/4 parts. We developed different designs for this, and we have selected one design, so which is a porous, as we know that, which it should encourage the osseointegration. Why? Because you are fixing an foreign body that is a man-made material and it is touching to the bone. So means the natural bone and this implant should get married, means it should have a osseointegration. So then this kind of osseointegration, so definitely we need to have a porous kind of thing which we need to mimic in the software, so where it will enhance that osseointegration through cell growth and things like that. So that's what, so we are ready and we are about to implant it, but because of the regulations or just like that, you cannot implant. So as a material, as a powder, titanium 64, it may be biocompatible and FDA certified, but those are not certified as a product. So then we need to undergo a lot of approvals, ethical clearances, things like that. So then at least what we can as end up in this case is, so normally they use it plates to otherwise what this technology helpful for them is to use these models to fix that plates and then finally doing removing that portion, and then this is what they resected that the cancerous portion, and these are the the plates which they put it, and these plates and then that kind of a thing as for the model they have used for planning the surgery. So that's what we have done. But recently I have a call from the surgeon, so there is a side effect or still there is a problem with the patient. Can we reopen and then can we operate again with the implant? So that is the thing where, but so this was the experience with the second experience, or the with attempting with the kind of implant to implanting in the human body. So then what we have done, then we are successful in this attempt. So this is basically a temporomandibular giant oncolysis called TMJ oncolysis. So this patient, a 20-year-old lady, so she had a problem, and as I showed during my previous starting my lecture, I showed you some TMJ got fused. So that TMJ means your lower jaw, upper jaw, there should be articulated easily like this, but that disc and this lower jaw and upper jaw, where you have that disc portion, the condyle portion, and where it will go and sit to your maxilla portion, that disc part or that joint part called TMJ. So for a healthy normal person, so it should be articulated freely, but the problem with her is it got fused, so it is not articulating, but by birth that got fused. So we need to release that fusion of that joint. So at the moment you release the fusion, so means your joint has lost. So then what we have done here is, so the other side joint is good, so then we have mirrored, we took the same dimensions of the thing from other side, and then we have mirrored and we have done this reconstruction of the jaw. This TMJ oncolysis case one we have done. So anyway, start with taking the CT data of the patient, and then this is what I'm talking about. Say you have we have to cut the bone and leave the gap, and it will slowly, the bone will grow, and you are using this distractor. So this distractor, you have a screw here. So then once slowly, in this case I think around 19 mm one side, maybe 21 maybe other side. So if I am correct, maybe correctly remember those values. So then we should stretch the bone, which we can see this is the initial without stretching or just an air gap. So this is the condition. So it's an, no, first we need to set this what you call the alignment, and then only we have to set this TMJ, which we can see this TMJ, this got fused here, but it should not be in that way. It should be a free joint here. So but this is the defect, and before doing it, so this is the one first thing, first surgery, like where we need to set the teeth properly, means we need to stretch this bone forward. So how to do it, how much we do it, so then we can do all that calculation and simulation on this bone, on this patient specific biomodel. So this is the initial condition, and if you slowly stretch this bone, so now you can see if you stretch 19 and 21, so which it is getting, teeth got aligned, so through this distractor. So this is called distraction osteogenesis. So then how this 3D printing helpful for this? So then you are using these models to calculate or to rehearsal the surgery or planning the surgery on these models. So this is during the surgery what I explained, like say you leave the bone and fix this distractor, and she has to turn, and this is what initially, and then it should be stretched like this, maybe after some time. So maybe every day she has to rotate that screw. So based on the calculations which we done, based on the biomodel which are derived from the patient specific data. So this is the first what you call the surgery. So which we can see, this is the initial condition, and now this is the after doing the distraction osteogenesis, this is the one where it got shed. But now is the real challenge, as I mentioned. So you have to attain this, you have to detach this fusion of this condyle and the lower jaw into upper jaw. So the challenge here is there may be a lot of nerves here, and then if you cut this and you are distracting the joint, and we need to rebuild the joint, so then only it will be successful surgery. So then this is what I'm talking about, which we need to cut this portion where it got fused. So for that, so then using a software, it is very much easy to the cut this portion and mimicking the same dimensions, or taking the mirror on the other side and then retaining the same, which we can see this should be like this but not like this. So then we have taken the other side, and then exactly we have reproduced that dimension, that geometry, and from the survived part to the the deceased part. So this is what I'm talking about, say exactly taking the dimensions, form and geometry, everything, and then transferred to this direction, the other condyle portion from the survived to the deceased one. So then this is the design, and this initially we printed in a polymer, and then we tested afterwards, we printed in the metal. So here we need to have three parts. So one is this joint or a disc or the fossa component, and this fossa is designed, and this fossa will be the disc portion where your condyle will come and sit here. So this will fix to the maxilla, that is upper jaw, and if from the lower jaw you have a condyle, that condyle will come and sit here. So yeah, this is what exactly you have. You once you at the moment you cut this portion, you have distracted this joint. So means partially you are distracted is your zygomatic arch, and this is what I am talking about, the fossa, and this is the condyle portion, that is the lower jaw. You have this condyle portion, and this is the rehearsal on the planning the surgery and the design, and then plastic 3D printed parts, and finally we printed in metal through a metal 3D printer, and titanium 64 is the material used, and this is what it's going to be. So before going to the surgery, even we need to fix this plate to the skull, and then we need to have a provision to fix the screws, and this is what it's going to be. So then we have designed a guide also. Why? Because a guide or a template, so just like that, he cannot make a drill a hole to the skull. There must be some support or guide. So that guide also we have designed, and based using that guide, so he can drill a hole, right? So that is during the surgery. And I was there in the presented. I was there in the surgery also. So during that time, we have inside the operation theater by taking the permission of the authorities. So then we have this in the real-time operation where we can see. So it got, once you release that TMJ. So because of this fusion, even she could not open her mouth, and she used to take only the liquids. But now, at the moment you released that fusing the joint, the fused joint, now she could able to now open the 4 centimeter normal opening of the mouth. So, and this is what during the surgery, the same as it is, it got fixed during the surgery on the condyle portion, sorry, on the zygomatic portion of the upper jaw, and this is the condyle which we have implanted. And in order to minimize metal to metal contact, so then this is a polymer, it's a FDA approved polymer as incorporated here, and this is the fixing. And now you can see, if we play this video, yeah. So this is she's the patient, which we can see now. She could able to open normal opening of the mouth and normal biting force almost, and normal chewing force. So she had a better societal life now. So this is what we are succeeded placing this surgery, and this we have done 2.5 years back. Now we have been following up this case. Now she is okay, no side reactions or no anything, it's not happened. So far so good. So, and then I will go to my last case, that is basal osseointegrated implant. So what is this basal osseointegrated implant? Say this case is just, I will brief the case. This is an accident case, which he lost the 5 teeth on the maxilla part, and along with the 5 teeth he lost the bone also. So if you are having a bone support, then you can take a conventional implants, what we discussed previously. So then you can have a support of the bone, and then you can fix, giving that bone as a support, and then you can fix the implant. But that is not the case here. You don't have a bone at all. Why? Because he lost the bone here. So then definitely we need to customize an implant here. So the conventional implants is not fitting here. And nowadays even the implants is also like, they are not using a screw kind of implants due to the reason of infection. So they are redesigning. So you have some kind of a different designs, like a basal kind of a designs. But here what we have done here is, say we have designed our own indigenous implant in order to accommodate these 5 teeth, and supporting that instead of a bone which he lost, and it is going to augmented. And one more important thing, we need to search for the nerve relieving option also here, which you have the nerve on the maxilla also. So then we need to have the density of the bone is not uniform, that is another thing, and the angle of the teeth, the placement, that is another challenge. So which we need to it has lead us to design and fabricate a customized implant. So as I mentioned, like you have the conventional implants like this basal implants or standard implants. So but unfortunately you don't have a bone here. If you could not have missed this bone, and you would have fit these implants here, but he doesn't have a bone which he lost during the accident. So then we have designed this kind of a implant, and this implant, and again this defect or this fracture is not uniform fracture. So which you can observe from this, the length of this abutment or the connectors is not same from one side to other side. And this is exactly the patient specific implant. And of course, for the checking of the failure, whether the normal biting, chewing forces, and there is a Van Mises stress analysis, FEM analysis conducted on this, whether is any failure of this implant is happening under the maximum boundary conditions. So then that also checked, and then finally we made initially these the polymer models, the biomodels, and even we could not even accommodate 5 teeth. At least we could accommodate, we are able to accommodate 4 teeth instead of 5 teeth here. So then this is the metal implant which it's going to go and fit. This is again from the metal powder bed system printed, and these are the supports, and after removing the supports, and this is the implant. And this implant which it got fitted here, which you can see, and on this implant where your this abutment and where your crowns will come and sit here. So it will be there forever into that. It's a permanent implant. It is not a temporary implant. It's a permanent implant. It will be there forever. On top of this, where your the crowns will come and on the abutment side, and then this is what and then you see this implant the placement through this X-ray. So where it got seated in this way. On top of it, these are the crowns got fitted. And you may have several cases like this. You may have some tumor cases, you may have a cleft cases, and you may have some accident cases like this, which is broken his skull or the cleft, as we know that then people still, we may have some kind of belief that about these cleft cases. But anyway, so you people have been suffering a kind of a cleft cases or a tumors or even accident cases. But accident cases may not be a good solution for FDM based printing, but you have a DLP or you have a LED or a DED kind of systems, so which it may be more faster than the FDM. FDM is the slowest process among all the polymers printing. So then depends on the time. Say the emergency case, they won't give much of the time. So at least if you want to print a skull, which we have showed you during the lab session, the Narayan Reddy has showed you 1:1 skull. So it took us to print 1.5 day time. So 1.5 day. So and then removing the supports if there are there, and then post processing, and minimum it will go up to 2 days. But emergency case cannot be hold for the 2 days. So it may be within 1 hour or 2 hour you have to be attended that. But may be possible with some of the high speed printers, maybe DLP or maybe any other technology. Definitely it is possible. Maybe within 2 hours or 3 hours, definitely you can print it. If that is the order of the day, now the technology is growing. But anyway, depends on the situation or the kind of requirement of the doctor's community. Either he is a oral maxillofacial surgeon, or either he is a craniofacial surgeon, or either he is a ENT or any kind of specialized or orthopedician, immaterial. But you can serve these community, the medical community, through this 3D printing absolutely without any difficulty. So let me close my presentation with giving the future direction of this 3D printing in medicine. So that is going to be the organ printing or 3D bioprinting. So what do you mean by that? So the organ printing or a 3D bioprinting is all about printing an organs. So how do you print an organ? So what is the material? So that is the first question, right? So they will take the raw material is your own cell. So your own living cell will be extracted from you. Say you have some lungs problem. Nowadays, lung is the crucial the organ. The organ of the day is the lungs because of COVID-19, right? So you can even take a lung if you want to do repair or if you want to replace the lungs. And of course, lungs transplantation is also doing for the COVID survivals, right? Recently, I read one article. So that is also a good idea to transplant the lung, with a that is also a good idea, right? So anyway, one more idea is to repair the lungs, or so you can take, or a doctor can extract the cell, the living cell from the patient, and he can put it in incubator, or he can put it in cultivate and add the proteins, so nutritions, and add it, and then grow in a lab, and then again you put back into the where you picked your cell from, which organ. Either it can be a lung or a heart, or it can be a liver, so or it can be an heart valve, or either it can be a bladder or a kidney or a lung, whatever it is. So that is the order of the day. Now the technology is growing in the direction. It is purely an organ printing or a bioprinting. So what is all about? So I will conclude my presentation with this video. So he is the person which got affected by some kind of a disease. Like basically there is a problem with the bladder. So what they have done is they took the bladder the living cells of the bladder from this guy. His name is Luke. So then they took and they have grown in a lab. So and then they have cultivated, or rather than, so they have made the bladder. They have grown the bladder as taken from the own patient cells, and they have put it. These are the cells, the pink solution, and of course they have added the nutritions to that, and they have put it. They have put in a incubator, and of course they have grown in a incubator, and even they have printed that bladder in a 3D printer. So it is basically a kind of so but if you see the developments or the applications as of now, it may be a simple organs or simple tissues like a skin, or just now we have seen a bladder, or a kind of canals, root canals, or these are the very simple organs. But you talk about the most complex organs like kidneys or heart or lungs or livers or kidneys or heart. So those are very complex. So like the organs like skin, the tissue like skin, so it may be very easy to know. So but still there will be a chance in the future, or which near future we can see all these developments may happen. So we can ensure that very soon we are going to see these kind of developments in terms of bioprinting or organ printing in this domain. So but time only the deciding factor, whether it is a 10 years of time or a 20 years of time, so to come out with these kind of artificial organs. So then time only decides, right? So then people have been surviving this technology for even right now. It may be a simple organs like blood vessels or skin or a bladder, but it's going to be a critical organs, maybe like lungs, maybe heart, maybe liver, maybe kidneys. So maybe time may be the deciding. So let me summarize what I have done during this session. So then we started with some medical scanning techniques, CT, MRI, and then how to process those CT, MRI data by using some medical image modeling softwares. And then we have discussed a bit about virtual models, that is through only on the computer analysis, or diagnostic models, and pre-planning surgical models, which you have seen with some of the case studies which we have performed with the doctors. And of course customized implants also, and it can be extended to the prosthetics. So then India, like we have a Jaipur, is very good in these limbs, artificial limbs. Even it can be integrated the artistry plus 3D printing and 3D scanning. So it's going to be a wonderful idea in India, where you can even progress in this direction. And you have some medical devices also. These medical devices can be, some may be implantable, some need not be every time implantable, some non-implantable, or some tools or some guides or some templates can be made, or some supporting devices, maybe arm braces, knee braces, so on and so forth. And of course even you can have a health monitoring devices also, you can design, fabricate. And finally tissue engineering, a bit matured one as organ printing or a bioprinting. So it's going to be happen very soon, we can see. Before closing my session, I would like to acknowledge a few people here, where otherwise it is not possible. Basically this requirement has to come from the doctors. So then I would like to acknowledge a few people here, maybe from Panniya Dental College, Hyderabad, NVSN, Shekhar Reddy and Aditya Mohan, for supporting the oral maxillofacial cases. And for the dental cases, P. Mahesh, principal and prosthodontics implantologist from Narayana Dental College, Nellore. And of course, for the financial support, two projects, one is from DST and another one is from SCRB projects, the sponsored projects. I would like to acknowledge for the financial support. And last but not the least, so whatever I presented here, this work is 2 to 3 PhD scholars work. So I would like to acknowledge the people, the PhD scholars one is the Manmadachari, another one is Santosh, and the third one is Fanindra. So I have presented the part of their PhD work here with you. So yeah, that's all from my side, the presentations. And now we'll open for the questions. And now I'll be handing over to the Narayan Reddy. Narayan Reddy?
Sir,
Sir, can I
yes,
have a
sir.
question, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. If anyone is having the questions, please ask and post the chat box also.
Sir, can I have a question, sir?
Yes,
Yes,
please. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Aditya from CBIT. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the great support and exceptional work, sir. Sir,
Thank you.
my thing is, sir, I want to design a scaffold where it because some cases bone can have growth, so that scaffold
Right.
should degrade itself
Right.
in regard to the growth of the bone, and if it grows in body, there will not be any problem of again checking whether the implant is there or not, or again resurgery and other things. So while doing this, there is a chance that there is a cell growth. In such cases, can I use FDM methodology to have a scaffold such that I can have I'm doing a coating on this polymer also, so that it will increase the celling growth, bone growth.
Bone
Can
growth,
I have a
yeah.
because metal implant is no case, no, I cannot do that because titanium again has this stress shielding because stiffness is more and it cannot be replaced. It cannot be degraded. But by polymer component, I can do that, sir. So I'm looking in that direction, sir. So can you tell me the challenges that I'll be facing and the way I can go forward by using a polymer first, using FDM, because that is the only option I have, and having a
No,
coating like so that
right.
I can improve.
Yes, my suggestion to you
Okay,
is you FDM, if you want to restrict, go with the PEEK material, PEEK, PEEK, poly either ketone. So
Okay, sir.
you go with that. And as of now, the technology, we don't have a material to have a kind of what you call biodegradable material. If there is a biodegradable material, so definitely it could have been better solution where it will automatically degrade into the human's body. But as of now, at 3D printing, I'm talking about. I'm not sure. As for my knowledge, maybe we may not able to 3D print, especially for the FDM technology. You don't have a kind of resorbable or bioabsorbable kind of a material. But my advice is go with the PEEK material. Yeah, it will work for somewhat. It's my advice for you.
Oh,
Go with the PEEK material, FDM.
okay, sir. Thank you, sir. I've seen PLA and PC the degradable in some papers, sir. Okay,
Yes, PLA is a biodegradable. You are correct. PLA is biodegradable. You are correct, but still, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Hello, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And really appreciate your
One by
work.
one by one.
Hello,
Please.
sir.
No, don't
Hello.
overlap. Don't overlap questions. One by one, please.
Hello, sir.
Hello,
This
sir.
is,
Yeah.
sir, how to, if we are developing any new material, how to check its biocompatibility, and is there any guide available for biocompatibility for different parts of the human body, which can be suitable for replacements? Suppose composites we are developing, whether it will be suitable for that or not. So, is there any method or some standards available?
Actually, I am not aware, but what I can suggest you is so you can have some kind of in situ or in vivo, in vitro kind of tests. So if you are developing your own material, so just like that, we cannot implant under the directly human. So better you consult some pharmacy college where they have some animal testing labs, right? First you test on those animals. Maybe you start with a smaller animal like a rat, and then go with the rabbit test. You test the in vivo and in vitro tests on those big small animals to big animals. And I hope there may be some guidelines. Even right now I don't have ready-made numbers or standards with me, but definitely there may be some guidelines to do that. And you check with any animal house which you can test your material. Yeah, in vivo and in vitro tests, and
Okay.
based on that, yeah, you can take some approvals, and then you can use your material and directly onto the implant. But you have supposed to do in vivo, in vitro tests on the animal houses. Yeah, you need to do that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. Thank you very much. Sir,
Thank you.
is there any ISO list of approved biocompatible materials like this, as we are having so many ISO standards?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think Professor Krishnanand is going to talk about next lecture on ASTM standards. But the thing here is, so I can add something here. Normally, these ASTM standards, so far, some 35 to 40 standards only developed so far. But I don't think so. They may give approval. Say you may have the, say for example, titanium 64. I am telling. So it is FDA approved material, no doubt in it. So it is FDA approved material. But the thing here is, if you make as a product, so then contamination may affect. So then who is going to take that responsibility? So you have, yes, as far as standards are concerned, normally these ASTM people, they are working collaboratively with the end users. Say, for example, basically you have two areas where we need to work with this. Is one is a medical, another one is a aerospace. Medical, where we need to have a FDA approvals. So for getting the FDA approvals, normally they are working with some collaborator kind of users, or the people who work for the these kind of surgeries. They are working ASTM, and in collaboration with those doctors, they are coming out with some kind of standards, but not ASTM in such taking forward and then developing. There must be some collaboration with the end users also, right? For the doctor community. So they also should be the part of it. And for in case of aerospace also, like say for Boeing or GE or these guys, so they are working with the ASTM to get the certification. So it is like, yeah, the user community also should have no proactive and then actually involving in the collaboration to develop these kind of standards. So that is lagging, which I can I may be correct, I may not be correct, but as for my knowledge goes, this is the status I can say. But Krishnanand may add some flavor to the standards and certification during the next session. Yes.
Sir, one question from chat box, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, how best suitable material is selected for printing of a particular biomodel, not organ? How compatibility is accessed before implanting?
Yeah. So the answer for your question is, say, you don't have a much choices here. So they remember first thing. So if you are implanting, so here two things are there. If you are implanting, so FDA approved materials are very few. Maybe metal you take, maybe you may have some 4 5, not more than that. And if you go to ceramics, again same, maybe the story, it may be around 4 5 or not more than that. Polymers or ceramics altogether, it may, I don't think so, it may be exceeding some 20 or even less than that, maybe 15 to 20 options you may find. I'm talking about the implant, and that is a permanent implant I'm talking about. So if you want to use as a permanent implant, so you have a very few limited materials choices available. So you have to choose appropriate material, the technology, as you have already exposed, like which technology will produce which material, right? And in the metal, what kind of metals it can produce, and if it is a polymer, what kind of polymers it will support, how many FDA approved biocompatible polymers are there, how many approved biocompatible FDA approved polymers, ceramics, or even metals are there. So you have a very few limited choices of the material here, as far as permanent implant placing I am talking about. So that is the one concern. And if it is a model, you have mixed two questions in that. If it is a model in the sense only for the planning the surgery or the rehearsal the surgery, so that depends your region of interest, your organ of interest. So as you might have observed from my presentation, you have this alveolar inferior canal. So for that application, better go with the SLA. It's more transparent in nature. So then use the for the model. If your application demands a transparency in the model, so then you choose either SLA or a DLP or a kind of a transparent material. You have an compatible 3D printer. So, and similar case for the other thing also. So then, so this is the thing. So 3D printing in such, it may have a limited number of materials, maybe hardly altogether. I'm not talking about biomaterials. Altogether material maybe 2000 or 3000 roughly. I may not be correct exact value, but maybe around 3000 or 4000 maybe all together. But among that, maybe you may have 10% of the material may be biocompatible. So you doesn't have much of the choice. So otherwise you develop, even as somebody is saying that I can develop, yes, you can develop, but it should be in vivo, in vitro tests, and it should be some authority should approve that yes, it can be implantable, like FDA or any other food and drug authority to give the clearances for that. I hope I answered your question. Hello.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sir, it was a very nice session. Sir, actually, I have not worked a lot in this area, but during working, doing my postgraduate from NIT Nagpur, I have seen many cases students working on this area under Dr. Padole, and I was developing interest in working in this area. So I've just started with the analysis part. So it is not related to the 3D printing. The question is related to analysis. So if I was just trying to do the analysis of the 3D model which we generate from CT scan images, so the major issue what I was having is the material properties. As you know, during analysis, material properties play a very important role. So
Yes.
the only option was to get the material properties from the literature. Now these material properties as will vary from person to person. Just I want to know that what can be done to make sure that we get the closest material properties to do the analysis of the 3D model which we get from the CT scan images.
Yeah, madam, very good question, and very challenging question also to answer. Actually, we cannot mimic as we know that we are implanting it, but there won't be any 100% replacement or the substitute for the natural. Why? Because all these materials are synthetic, man-made, and the problem, or rather than the representation, whatever rightly you pointed out during the modeling. So say for example, you may be using some a kind of a software, which that software may be in tune with some mechanical or a kind of a library, those kind of a material library you may find out through ANSYS or maybe some other package if you use. So you may not be finding these material library where which will mimic the bone or any other tissue or any other the biology or the anatomy, or in turn the tissue or organ property, that material. So definitely it is challenging. So like that's what you have these softwares to enhance that kind of material properties, so which we are almost comfortable using the mimic software, which they are providing some kind of a special library of materials. But I am sure some extent the open source softwares also must have these material data bank or the natural or the biomaterial which you can model, and you can directly take those templates or kind of a landmarks from the softwares. But I'm not sure whether the open source softwares will having all these capabilities. But medical image processing software, modeling softwares like I already mentioned some of the names. So definitely we are comfortable using them. But the $1 million question is how close it with the natural bone, the natural tissue of the patient. Whether it is 100% close.
Yes,
No,
actually,
no,
sir, it varies
that's
from person to person. Well, the problem is that for one person the property will be different, and for the other person the property will be
Correct.
different. So,
Correct.
library, I think it will not be 100% match.
Correct.
But do you know of anything which can give us a 100% property till date? I think I don't know. So just wanted to know, because see, implants material we are using it for 3D printing, so that material property is 100% we are sure of. So the only thing is when you do an analysis of an assembly, it will be comprising of the implant, and we have to do the analysis with the natural fiber. So that time, if we miss with the properties, may our results will not be that claiming. So how much we sure about the material properties will be the surety of the results. So I was just
Yes.
concerned about that material properties.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
sir.
very
Okay.
challenging, madam. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Narayana?
Sir, no question.